Whenever the stories of 1001 Nights are mentioned, one name comes to everyone's mind: Scheherazade, the young woman who stood before a ruthless king, and for 1001 nights, with nothing but the power of her words and the beauty of her stories, changed her fate. But before the nights of Shahrazade's storytelling began, another tale unfolded, a tale of two brothers, two mighty kings, and a tragedy that changed their lives forever. This is the story of Shah Zaman and Shahbaz. Long ago, in the time of the ancient Sasanian kings, there ruled a great king over the islands of India and China. Among all his treasures and possessions, his greatest pride was not his wealth or his armies, but his two sons. The elder son was named Shah Zaman. He was known for his wisdom, his understanding of politics, and his ability to govern. The younger son was named Shahbaz. He was famous for his courage, bravery, generosity, and noble character. Their father, the king, gave great attention to their education and upbringing. He wanted his sons to become worthy rulers, prepared to carry the responsibility of kingship, and his efforts succeeded. Both princes became admired by their people. Shah Zaman became known for his wisdom and judgment. Shahbaz became known for his courage and generosity. In time, their father appointed Shah Zaman as the ruler of Samarkand, while Shahbaz remained with him until the end of his life. After their father passed away, Shah Zaman continued ruling Samarkand, and Shahbaz took his father's place as king of the islands of India and China. For 20 years, the two brothers ruled their kingdoms with power and authority. From the outside, they appeared to have everything a king could wish for. But behind the walls of their palaces, a painful lesson was waiting for them. After many years of separation, Shah Zaman longed to see his younger brother again. Although they ruled distant kingdoms, the bond between them remained strong. So, he decided to travel from Samarkand to the kingdom of Shahbaz. Before leaving, he called his chief minister and said, "During my absence, take care of the affairs of my kingdom and act in my place. Prepare the royal journey, for I will leave in 2 days." The minister obeyed. A royal caravan was prepared, and Shah Zaman set out with nobles, servants, and trusted companions toward the islands of India and China. The journey continued for many days. When night came, the travelers stopped to rest. They raised their tents and prepared to continue their road the following morning. But on the first night of the journey, Shah Zaman remembered something. He had prepared a precious jewel as a gift for his brother Shahbaz. It was meant to show his love after 20 years of separation, but he had forgotten it in his palace. Not wanting to arrive without the gift, Shah Zaman secretly returned to his palace with 2 companions. While everyone else slept, the palace was silent and dark. Shah Zaman entered, expecting only to take the forgotten jewel and return. But instead, he saw something that broke his heart. His wife, the woman he trusted, was with another man. The king was overcome with anger and sorrow. The joy of seeing his brother disappeared. He drew his sword and punished the 2 who had betrayed him. But he did not call his servants. He did not speak of what had happened. He quietly left the palace and returned to his caravan. Now he carried 2 things with him: the precious gift for his brother and a wound hidden deep inside his heart. The journey continued, but Shah Zaman was no longer the same man who had left Samarkand. He became silent. He spoke to no one about his pain. The memories of that night stayed with him throughout the road. After many days of travel, the caravan finally reached the kingdom of Shahbaz. When Shahbaz heard that his brother had arrived, he was filled with happiness. After 20 years apart, he would finally see Shah Zaman again. He ordered the city to be decorated. The streets were adorned, the gates were prepared, and the nobles, ministers, and officials gathered to welcome the elder king. When the 2 brothers met, Shahbaz embraced Shah Zaman warmly and welcomed him with great joy. But soon, he noticed something. The reunion that should have been filled with happiness was covered by sadness. His brother's face carried a deep sorrow. Shahbaz knew him well. This was not ordinary tiredness from travel. Something had happened. Something was troubling Shah Zaman's heart, and the younger king wanted to know the reason. For the first few days, Shahbaz did not question his brother. He thought perhaps the long journey had exhausted him. Perhaps rest would bring back his happiness. But the sadness remained. One morning, unable to bear the mystery any longer, Shahbaz spoke gently. "My dear brother, we have been separated for 20 years. I dreamed of seeing you again, But since your arrival, I have seen only sorrow in your face. Tell me what troubles you. Perhaps together we can find a solution." Shah Zaman remained silent for a moment. Then he answered, "Brother, if I begin telling my sorrow, I will make others share in my grief." He still could not reveal the truth. Instead, he asked, "Arrange a hunting expedition for a few days. Perhaps the open fields and the journey will ease my heart." Shahbaz agreed. Preparations for the hunt began immediately. Horses were prepared. Servants gathered. Everything was arranged for the royal expedition. When the morning of the hunt arrived, Shahbaz came to take his brother with him. But he found Shah Zaman weak and troubled. Shah Zaman said, "Go without me. You have prepared this hunt with great care. Do not cancel it because of me. I will remain here today, and perhaps when I feel better, I will join you." Shahbaz was reluctant, but his brother insisted. At last, he left the palace with his companions. Shah Zaman remained alone, unable to sleep. He rose and went toward the window of his chamber. The window overlooked the inner gardens of the palace. At first, everything seemed peaceful, but then he saw movement. The women of Shahbaz's harem entered the garden, believing that the king and his companions had left for the hunt. They no longer feared being discovered, and what Shah Zaman saw shocked him. The people of the palace, who should have guarded their honor, were openly committing betrayal. He stood silently, watching. The sight was terrible, but strangely, it made him forget his own sorrow for a moment. Until then, he believed that his suffering was unique. Now he realized that another king, even his own brother, might also be facing the same pain. Later that day, Shahbaz returned from the hunt. His first thought was for his brother. He went directly to see him. As soon as he entered the chamber, he noticed something unusual. The man who had seemed crushed by sorrow that morning now appeared calmer. Not happy, but different. Shahbaz sat beside him and said, "My brother, when I left you this morning, grief seemed to have consumed you. Yet now I see a change in your face. Tell me what has happened." This time, Shah Zaman decided to speak. He told Shahbaz about the night he had secretly returned to his palace. He spoke of the forgotten gift, the journey back, and the betrayal he had witnessed. Shahbaz listened with sorrow. At last, he understood why his brother had arrived carrying such sadness. But then he asked, "If this happened before you left Samarkand, why did your grief become even greater after you arrived here?" For a moment, Shah Zaman remained silent. Then, he told his brother what he had seen in the palace garden. He described everything: the gathering, the betrayal, and the shameful actions that had taken place while Shahbaz was away. At first, Shahbaz could not accept it. The accusation seemed impossible. His own household, his own harem, the women under his protection? No, surely there had been some mistake. He trusted his brother completely, but what he described was difficult to believe. "If anyone else had spoken such words," said Shahbaz, "I would have ordered his execution. But you are my brother, and I know you do not lie." Still, doubt remained in his heart. "How can such a thing happen in my own palace without my knowledge?" Shah Zaman replied, "I know what I saw." Then, he proposed a plan. The brothers would announce another hunting expedition. The servants, soldiers, and attendants would leave exactly as before. Everyone would believe the kings had gone hunting. But in secret, the two brothers would remain behind, hidden from sight, watching, waiting. If Shah Zaman was mistaken, the truth would reveal itself. And if he was right, then Shahbaz would see everything with his own eyes. Though reluctant, Shahbaz agreed. The next day, the preparations were made. The hunting party departed. Dust rose behind the horses as they left the palace. To everyone watching, it appeared that both kings had gone. But Shah Zaman and Shahbaz remained hidden. Then, they waited. Their waiting did not last long. Soon, the women of the palace emerged. Just as Shah Zaman had said, believing the kings were gone, they gathered openly in the garden. The same betrayal, the same shameless behavior. This time, however, Shahbaz witnessed it himself. No rumor, no accusation, no misunderstanding, only the truth. The king felt his heart sink. The trust he had placed in his household was shattered. For a long time, neither brother spoke. There were no words that could lessen what they had seen. At last, Shahbaz turned to his brother. "What use are kingdoms?" he asked. "What value is power if this is what awaits us in our own homes?" The glory of kingship suddenly seemed meaningless. Their crowns felt heavy, their palaces empty, their wealth worthless. Without informing anyone, Without making any announcement, the two brothers left their kingdoms behind. Together, they rode away into the wilderness, far from their courts, far from their ministers, far from the burdens of rule. They did not know where they were going. They only wished to escape their sorrow. For many days, they traveled, across lonely plains, across empty lands. Neither brother spoke much. Each was lost in his own thoughts. Eventually, their wandering brought them to the shore of the Sea of Oman. There, beside the sea, stood a great tree. At its roots flowed a clear spring of fresh water. The brothers were exhausted. They sat beside the spring to rest and drink. The sound of the water was calming. For a brief moment, peace seemed possible, but suddenly, the earth began to tremble. A terrible roaring sound filled the air. In the distance, a great cloud of dust rose toward the sky. The brothers looked at one another in alarm. Something enormous was approaching. Fearing for their lives, they quickly climbed the great tree and hid among its branches. From there, they watched, and what they saw filled them with astonishment. A monstrous demon approached the spring. He was enormous and terrifying. Upon his head, he carried a great chest. The creature reached the spring and lowered the chest to the ground. Then, he opened it. From inside emerged a woman of extraordinary beauty. She seemed almost like a fairy. No sooner had she stepped out than the demon spoke. "I have carried you here for a long journey," he said. "I am tired and wish to sleep. Sit beside me and keep watch. If danger approaches, wake me." Having spoken these words, the demon laid down upon the ground. Within moments, he fell into a deep sleep. His snores echoed through the air. The brothers watched from the tree above. After a while, the woman looked carefully at the sleeping demon. Then she reached into her clothing and pulled out a long cord. Strung upon it were many rings. One by one, she began counting them aloud. 10, 20, 50, 100. The numbers continued rising until she finally announced 570. Then she sighed and said, "I hope that before this demon awakens, I may obtain the 571st ring." The two brothers listened in confusion. Then, the woman suddenly looked upward. She had noticed them hiding among the branches. "Come down," she called. The brothers were startled, but she repeated her command. Reluctantly, they climbed down from the tree. Standing before her, they feared the sleeping demon. But the woman laughed. "Do not worry," she said. "This creature sleeps heavily and will not awaken until tomorrow, unless I choose to wake him." The brothers stared at the rings. At last, they asked, "If the demon sleeps so deeply, why do you not escape?" The woman shook her head sadly. Then, she began to tell her story. She explained that the demon had kidnapped her years earlier. On the night of her wedding, he had stolen her away and carried her off. He had cast powerful spells upon her and hidden the secret of those spells in a place she could not find. No weapon could harm him, and if she ever tried to flee, he would eventually find her. For 5 years, she had remained his prisoner. Then she revealed the meaning of the rings. Whenever the demon fell asleep, which usually happened once every few days, she sought out a stranger. From each man, she took a ring as a reminder of her revenge against the demon. The rings on the cord were the proof. 570 rings. 570 men. And now, she intended to add 2 more. The brothers were disgusted by her words. Though she herself was a captive, she had chosen a path of deceit and corruption. They had first thought she was only a helpless prisoner. But now, they saw another side of the story. They did not wish to remain there any longer. They left the spring and continued their journey. As they walked away, Shahbaz said, "My brother, after seeing what happened here, I understand that our suffering is nothing compared with the misfortune of that demon." He decided to return to his kingdom. He wanted to punish those who had betrayed him and continue ruling. Then he asked Shah Zaman, "What will you do? Will you return to Samarkand, or will you stay with me?" Shah Zaman answered, "Neither. I do not want the throne of Samarkand. I do not want power or government. I want to live alone in a distant land. I will spend the rest of my life in worship. Perhaps what happened to me was because of my own previous sins and my pride. My brother, I no longer wish to carry the burden of ruling. I will follow my own path." And so, the two brothers separated. Shah Zaman continued his journey toward an unknown destination. Shahbaz turned back toward his kingdom. When he passed by the same tree and spring, he saw the demon still asleep. The demon's loud snoring could still be heard. The woman was still counting the rings on her cord. The number was still 570. Shahbaz continued onward. He had made his decision. He was returning to his throne. But what waited for him there would change the fate of countless people. When Shahbaz returned to his kingdom, he entered his palace carrying the pain and anger that had filled his heart. The first thing he did was summon all the people of the inner palace, the women of the household, the servants, and those whom he knew had betrayed him. When they stood before him, they saw the anger on the face of their king. His face was full of rage. His eyes were filled with fury. They understood that a terrible punishment was coming. Shahbaz then called the executioners. He reminded the guilty of what had happened. He told them about the betrayal of his household, the betrayal that his brother Shah Zaman had discovered when he first left Samarkand, and the betrayal that both brothers had later witnessed with their own eyes in the palace of Shahbaz. Then Shahbaz gave the order. All those guilty of this betrayal must be executed. The number of those condemned was more than 30. The guilty cried. They begged for mercy. They asked for forgiveness. But Shahbaz did not listen. Before the executioners raised their swords, he said, "O wicked and ungrateful people, you have brought disgrace and corruption into my palace. The punishment you receive is because of the betrayal and evil that you have committed." Then, the executioners carried out the king's command. This was Shahbaz's first revenge. But this revenge did not calm his heart. The anger that had begun with the betrayal of his household became something much greater. Shahbaz made another decision, a decision that would bring suffering to the entire city. He ordered that every day, one of the beautiful young women of the city should be brought to him. That girl would become his wife. But when the wedding night ended, before the sun rose, he ordered the executioner to cut off her head. Every morning, another innocent girl lost her life. Every night, another family lived in fear. This continued for 3 years. More than 1,000 young women were killed at dawn after their wedding nights. The city became filled with grief. There was no longer a household that had not lost a daughter. No family remained untouched by the king's terrible revenge. Finally, the day came when there was no young woman left in the city who had not already been taken, or who could be brought before the king. When Shahbaz learned of this, he summoned his vizier. He ordered him, "Find a young woman for me for the coming night. Search wherever you must. Bring me a girl by any means possible." The vizier left the palace. With a heart full of sorrow, he returned home. He sat in the courtyard of his house. He placed his head between his hands and wept. He was the father of daughters. He knew that finding another girl meant sending another innocent person toward death. The vizier had 2 daughters. The elder daughter was named Scheherazade. The younger daughter was named Dunyazad. Scheherazade was an intelligent and educated young woman. She knew many ancient stories and possessed great knowledge. She was her father's companion and comfort. When she saw her father sitting sadly and crying, she asked, "Father, what has caused you so much sorrow?" The vizier told her about the king's command. He explained that every night, a girl was taken to the palace, and at dawn she was killed. He told her that now, the king had ordered him to find another girl. After listening carefully, Scheherazade said, "Father, do not be so troubled. I have a request from you. Tomorrow, take me to Shahbaz. Make me his wife." The vizier was shocked. He could not believe what he had heard. He said, "My daughter, what are you saying? Do you not know what happens to every girl who enters the palace? By morning, she loses her life. How can I allow my own hands to send my beloved daughter to death?" But Scheherazade answered, "Father, I know what awaits me, but I have a plan. If you do not take me to the king, his revenge will continue. Soon there will be no one left. He will come for me, for my sister Dunyazad, or for another remaining girl from the households of the city. Perhaps I can save myself. Perhaps I can save the remaining people from this suffering." The vizier still tried to change his daughter's decision. He said, "My daughter, listen to a story. Perhaps it will show you why I fear your plan." And he began telling her the tale of the farmer, the ox, and the donkey. The vizier said, "Long ago, there was a wealthy farmer. He owned great riches. He had gardens full of fruit, fields full of crops, and countless sheep. In his stable, he kept a cow and a donkey. The special thing about this farmer was that he understood the language of animals. One night, the farmer secretly approached the stable. There he heard the cow and the donkey speaking. The cow said to the donkey, "My dear friend, how fortunate you are. Your life is easy. During the day, you rest. You eat well. You sleep comfortably. But look at my life. From morning until night, I suffer. Sometimes I plow the fields. Sometimes I turn the mill. The owner works me constantly. The work does not end. My body suffers because of it." The cow continued, "You do not know the pain that we animals suffer while you live comfortably." The donkey said to the ox, "Tomorrow, when the farmer comes for you, pretend to be sick. Lie down and do not get up. This way, you may escape your hard work." The ox followed the donkey's advice. The next morning, when the farmer came, he saw that the ox could not work. The farmer said to himself, "Perhaps the ox is sick. I cannot leave the work undone." So, he took the donkey instead and made him do the ox's work. The donkey spent the entire day suffering under the heavy labor. That night, when the donkey returned, he said to the ox, "I regret the advice I gave you. Today I heard the farmer say, 'Since the ox is sick, I will take him to the butcher and kill him. Since the donkey has already done the work, I can use him instead.'" The vizier then turned to Scheherazade and said, "My daughter, I tell you this story because I fear that your desire to save others may bring you harm. Like the donkey, you may think you are helping, but the result may be worse." Scheherazade listened to the story. Then she replied, "Father, your story is wise and meaningful, but my situation is not like that. I believe I will succeed, and if I do not go to the king, there is no other way to stop what is happening." The vizier realized that his daughter's decision was firm. No words could change her mind. Finally, with great sadness, he accepted her choice. He prepared to take Scheherazade to the palace of Shahbaz. That night, the daughter of the vizier was brought before the king. The marriage took place, and with that night, began the story that would become known throughout the world as the tale of Scheherazade and the 1001 Nights. After the marriage ceremony, Scheherazade entered the palace of Shahbaz. She knew what awaited her. Like all the other young women before her, she knew that when morning came, the king had intended to send her to the executioner. But Scheherazade was not like the others. She had entered the palace with a plan. She had prepared herself with knowledge, courage, and the stories she had learned throughout her life. That night, after the wedding had taken place, and before dawn arrived, Scheherazade spoke to the king. She said, "Your Majesty, before my time comes and before I go beneath the sword of the executioner, I have one request." Shahbaz looked at her and said, "Other than asking for forgiveness, which I cannot grant until the time of dawn, tell me what you desire, and I will fulfill your request." Scheherazade replied, "My request is that my sister Dunyazad be allowed to come here, so that I may see her one last time." The king accepted her request. He sent someone to bring Dunyazad to the palace. Dunyazad already knew the plan that Scheherazade had prepared. When she arrived, she entered the room and greeted her sister. Scheherazade and Dunyazad embraced each other. They shed a few tears, as if they were saying goodbye forever. Then Dunyazad turned toward her sister and said, "My dear sister, do you remember the story you told me last night? You did not finish it. If you have a little time, please tell me the end of that story." Scheherazade understood that this was the moment she had been waiting for. She turned toward Shahbaz. Then, with a calm voice, she began telling the story. She started the tale of the merchant and the demon. At times, she spoke quickly. At times, she spoke slowly. She changed the rhythm of her voice so that the story would hold the attention of anyone listening. Shahbaz, who had heard only the beginning of the tale, found himself drawn into her words. The king, who had always lived surrounded by power and commands, now found himself listening carefully to the voice of a storyteller. Scheherazade continued the story. She knew that time was passing quickly. She wanted to keep the king interested until sunrise. Sometimes, she spoke so quickly that Dunyazad herself could barely follow every word. But Shahbaz was fascinated. The story had awakened his curiosity. He wanted to know what would happen next. Finally, Dunyazad said goodbye to her sister and left the room. The night was almost over. The time for the executioner was approaching. But Shahbaz remained silent. He looked at Scheherazade and said, "Although I have heard only the final part of this story, I found it very interesting. I want you to tell me this tale from the beginning. I love listening to old stories, but I have never heard a storyteller whose words were as sweet and captivating as yours. But now it is almost morning, and I feel sleepy. Tomorrow night, tell me the story of the merchant and the demon again, slowly and completely." Then Shahbaz clapped his hands. The special servant who waited outside entered. The king gave his command. Tonight, we have no need for the executioner, he is dismissed. And so, for the first time in many years, a young woman survived the night with Shahbaz. The sword that had taken the lives of countless women did not fall. The power of a story had delayed the king's terrible decision. But Scheherazade knew that her work had only begun. She had saved one night. Now she had to survive another, and another, and another. For this was only the beginning of the 1001 nights. The next night arrived. Scheherazade returned before Shahbaz, knowing that the king was waiting to hear the continuation of her story. The king had spared her life for one night, because he wanted to know the rest of the tale. Now, he wished to hear the story from the beginning, and discover how it would end. As before, Dunyazad was present. She asked her sister, "My dear sister, if you have the time, please tell us the story you began last night." Scheherazade turned toward the king and began. She said, "It has been told that long ago, there was a merchant who possessed great wealth. He owned many goods and traveled from one land to another for trade. The merchant had a habit of traveling to different places to buy and sell his merchandise. One day, while traveling, he stopped beneath a tree beside a spring of water. The merchant sat down to rest. He opened his provisions and ate some food. After finishing his meal, he threw the remaining seeds and pieces of fruit onto the ground. While the merchant was resting, something unexpected happened. A powerful demon suddenly appeared before him. The demon was carrying a sword. His face showed anger, and his appearance was frightening. He approached the merchant and said, "Stand up. I am going to kill you." The merchant was terrified. He asked, "Why do you want to kill me? What crime have I committed?" The demon answered, "You have committed a great crime. When you ate your fruit and threw away the seeds, one of them struck my son and killed him. Because of this, I must take your life in revenge." The merchant was shocked. He could hardly believe what he had heard. He said, "Surely there must be some mistake. How could a small seed thrown onto the ground cause such a tragedy?" But the demon insisted, "My son has died because of you. You must receive the same punishment." The merchant begged for mercy. He said, "Great demon, I have family. I have wealth. I have responsibilities. Allow me to return home one last time. Let me settle my affairs. Let me say goodbye to my family. Then I promise that I will return to this place and accept whatever judgment you have decided." The demon did not trust him at first, but the merchant promised again and again. Finally, the demon agreed. He allowed the merchant to leave. The merchant returned home. He told his family what had happened. Everyone was filled with sorrow. His relatives cried, because they believed they would lose him forever. The merchant arranged his affairs. He divided his wealth. He returned what belonged to others. He paid his debts. He prepared everything, so that his family would not suffer after his death. When the time came, the merchant said goodbye to his loved ones. He returned to the place where he had promised to meet the demon. He chose to keep his word, even though he knew death awaited him. The merchant stood beneath the tree and waited. After some time, an old man passed by. He saw the merchant standing alone and asked, "Why are you here? Why do you look so troubled?" The merchant told him his story. The old man was amazed by what he heard. He said, "This is a strange and terrible story." He decided to stay and see what would happen. Soon, the demon appeared again. He came with his sword in his hand. He looked at the merchant and said, "You have returned. You kept your promise. Now prepare yourself." The merchant accepted his fate. But before the demon could carry out his punishment, the old man stepped forward. He said, "Wait, allow me to hear this matter completely. Perhaps there is something that can be done." The old man asked the demon to tell the whole story. The demon explained again how the merchant's actions had caused the death of his son. The old man listened carefully. Then he said, "This is a remarkable matter. If you allow me, I will tell you a story even stranger than this one." The demon became interested. He agreed to listen. At this point, Scheherazade stopped speaking. The night had passed quickly. Shahbaz, who had been listening carefully, wanted to know what would happen next. But before Scheherazade could continue, dawn began to approach. The king looked at her and said nothing. He had become curious about the next part of the story. Once again, the story had reached a moment where he wanted to hear more. And so, another night passed. The executioner did not come. Scheherazade had survived another night. But the story of the merchant and the demon was not finished. The king would have to wait until the next night to hear the rest.